All right, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Um,
Yourself?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's a very rainy day here in Oregon.
Mm.
Are you in London? Is that right?
So I'm right now. I'm just west of London,
Okay.
in a town called Swindon. And it's raining here too. So,
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so the first thing we were going to talk about was why we're vegan and how we view sort of the philosophy of veganism. The only things that we've talked about briefly through text is the idea that I focus kind of on suffering and maybe you don't. So, how do you view how yourself and humans should look at animals and why we should treat them how we do?
well, I just see it as a logical extension of how we treat other human beings. Like when I look at other people, I don't consider that I want to reduce their suffering. I just consider their rights, like the rights that we've afforded to other human beings, their right not to be killed or enslaved or tortured and things like this. And I just extend that to the other animals in the animal kingdom.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, I want to challenge a little bit of that. We'll do legally and then also just morally. So if you knew there was a fire and there was a person and a dog inside that building, would you have any separation for just you personally? We can even say that you wouldn't be judged by others. So you knew there was a fire, nobody was around, you could only save one.
Mm.
How would you view that?
Well, obviously, I am still going to be biased towards human beings in that situation. And I would still value human beings more than I would value a dog, right? Um,
Mhm.
of course, in that scenario, I'm not violating anybody's rights. I'm actually saving one of them. So this is just, it comes down to who I would prefer to save. But that said, if the person was, say, a 99-year-old person and the dog was a puppy, there might be a good reason to save the puppy as opposed to save the 99-year-old person.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny that you brought that up because I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday and somehow we got to this topic and I challenged them on a 90-year-old lady versus the puppy and you'll see how that goes when that video's up.
uh,
But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that we should afford at least we should not harm animals. I think we should leave animals to their own selves. We shouldn't have them as part of our society necessarily. We should not have bred them to be pets. We should not have farm animals. They should live in the wild. And we as humans that are capable of building things should build ways to prevent them from like coming in our roads and getting hit by us. And we should not use them. But aside from that, I think I view it similar to you where I I personally value humans more. So I would save the person as well. Um, yeah.
yes, but in the scenario that you're talking about, this isn't a scenario where we're taking life. So in many ways, if there was a risk to your own life, you could quite easily say, "Well, I'm just not going to go and save anybody because I don't want to risk my own life." And I don't think that you'd be a bad person for doing that. You had the opportunity to potentially save one, but you decided that your life was too important to risk, and so you didn't do either. And I think that that's perfectly acceptable as well. Um, I don't know what you think about
Yeah, no, I agree. I think at very least legally, because everything changes. Like if you're out in nature, I think there's slightly different answers for things. But when you create a society and the society is based on protections, then I think legally you, for the most part, shouldn't be forced to do anything. So, one argument whenever I'm discussing like the topic of abortion, I always mention if I come across a dying person and the only thing I have to do to save their lives is to pluck out one beard hair, I don't think legally I should have to do that, but morally I think I should. If I knew somebody that didn't pluck out that beard hair and let somebody die for that reason, I would not be friends with them and I would make videos talking about how they were bad. They did a bad thing, but I don't
that.
think that legally they should be charged for it.
But it's always a slippery slope, isn't it? Because then someone says, okay, if you only have to plug out one beard hair, then okay, maybe you're a bad person. But what about if it's two? What about if it's
Mm.
all the hairs on your face? What about if it's every single hair on your entire body? At what point do we say, okay, maybe that's too much?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I don't think you have a moral obligation to plug out one beard hair, but I think that most people would say that if you didn't do it, then you wouldn't be a very kind person. That's for sure.
For sure. Yeah, so I think we agree on that stance. So maybe the part that we don't agree on is the in between. So since we do have this situation where legally and naturally we have humans amongst us that are harming animals, then it comes down to what's most important to us. So I agree that that we should just not harm them at all. But while they're being harmed, I have to outweigh things. Sort of like you're talking about one beard hair versus two. I have to look at if if I had to choose between ending the dairy industry versus ending the meat industry, I might rather, if the suffering's going to exist, I might rather a death happens with no suffering than the suffering happens with no death, if that makes sense.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. If but if what about if it was like this? Let's say you go for a new job and the guy who you're going to work for, he's not a very nice guy, but the job's really good and it pays well. And after this interview, you won't have to see him again. He's like the CEO or something. But he
Mhm.
says to you, "Oh, I can't stand vegans. But seeing as we're going to sit together, I'm going to make you a deal. If you order a vegan meal, I'm going to eat 6 cheeseburgers right now. But if you eat one cheeseburger, I'll have a vegan meal. Now, technically, if you eat the cheeseburger, you're going to cause less harm.
Mhm.
But by eating the burger, that's not a vegan thing to do. Vegans don't eat cheeseburgers. So what would you do in that situation?
In that situation, I would think that the person's trolling me, and I probably wouldn't act how
Hmm.
I think morally I should. If I could press a button and know that this is a one-time situation, or maybe a daily situation, if I knew that if this person said, for all the meat you consume, I will consume 5 times that amount less of meat. Um, if I wasn't worried about causing damage to my health by consuming meat, I think
Hmm.
I would do it if I could objectively know those findings. But I wouldn't do
Okay,
it based on an agreement with a buddy.
okay, but what about if the guy was serious? Let's just ramp it up a bit. What about if it was um, there's I don't know, there's fish in a small fish tank, like small fish.
Mhm.
Um, Either you eat one of the small fish, or he's going to eat six. And these are real deaths now. These are tangible. You can count them.
Mhm.
If you don't eat that small fish, you're going to be responsible for 5 more fishes' death.
Yeah, no, that's tricky. Like if I truly knew it, and let's say I had to watch him kill the six, would I kill one of those six to prevent him from killing the other five? It would depend on how well I thought I could achieve it and stomach it while being
Yeah,
desensitized, I think.
yeah. I don't have to. This is like I know you saw my video earlier around utilitarianism
Hmm.
and deontology, and this is what I don't have to like play these games in my head. I don't have to work out any suffering. I don't have to figure this out. I just
Hmm.
know that I be part of it, and I don't want to contribute towards it. And if somebody else wants to play silly games, then I can let them play silly games because that's nothing to do with me. I'm not going to be responsible for it. And if they want to do that, then they can do that. But I won't be a part of it.
Okay. And I get that. I respect that. That's how I personally view the trolley car problem is if it's going to kill 5 people and I could switch the lever and have it go and kill one person, I would not be a part of it and I would let nature take its course and those 5 would die. So
Mm.
I do understand that stance, but it depends on so I don't want to be offensive to the idea, but to me what it feels like is the difference of feeling good about yourself versus actually helping others. Now, I don't know to what level I could do it. I don't think I would swap out lives. Like, for example, let's say we changed it to humans. if somebody said, I'm going to kill these five, but if you kill that one, I won't kill these five, I probably wouldn't do that. But if I knew they were actually going to kill the five, and they said, if I kill one of those same five to save the other four, and it wasn't just like, I'm going to do it, so you better do it. And then they're like, oh, I can't believe you killed him. I wasn't going to. I just mean in a hypothetical world where we know those five are going to die. I don't know if I would do it. I would obviously have to base it on a legal situation, but morally, if I knew, I think I would do it. And
Mhm.
I don't know if I'd be able to live with myself. It would be tough, but I would know
Yeah,
I did the right
yeah.
thing.
I hear what you're saying. What you're saying is, oh, but you have some sort of moral purity that's getting in the way of preventing the most suffering. But again,
Mhm.
that's not my goal. My goal isn't to prevent the most suffering. My goal is not to violate the rights of others. And I would
Mhm.
apply human context. I wouldn't. There's actually a good film, and it's about a girl who I think she gets like knocked out at a gas station, and these guys take her back, and three of the guys sexually assault her. And then there's one
Mhm.
of them who's a disabled young man. He's a virgin, and they bully him. They say, "Look, you need to do that as well. Otherwise, because if you're not in on it as well, you could go to the police. So you need to do it as well." Um, and so he has a choice. He either violates this girl's rights, or he's going to get killed. So he decides to do it. So in that sense, you could literally apply that to the human context. I don't know what you would do in that situation. I suppose it's different when your life is on the line. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would do just about anything to save my own life. I don't
yeah.
know how bad I would like harm somebody, but
Mm.
if I was put in one of those situations that you see maybe in movies about slavery or something where they make two people fight to the death, I wouldn't want to
Hmm.
kill this innocent person for no reason. But
Yeah.
I would do just about anything to survive. If similar to like you probably heard me say, if I was on an island, I would if I got to the point of starvation, I'd probably kill somebody to survive to eat them.
Of course, yeah. But also, like, what about if what we care about is a reduction in suffering? Wouldn't the best thing we could possibly do is to go out and kill all the predators in nature, or at least kill all the cats that people have? Because cats kill. I know we've got a cat at home, and he regularly comes back with mice and
Mhm.
frogs and other other animals. Wouldn't the best thing we could do to prevent suffering kill our pet cat, since he is the cause of suffering?
Yeah, so it's complicated. So before I answer that question, which I have a big answer for that question, I do want to point out that I view it differently for humans than I do for animals. I am not one of those that thinks that we just want to cause as little suffering as possible. I think humans need to have their rights based on how we should build a society and afford legal rights. So that is what it is. But as far as animals, if we should view it as the actions we're personally going to take, like you were saying, you don't want to personally kill or harm them, versus do we want an approach that causes the least amount of suffering? um I definitely view how in a society with the laws we have now, a difference between that and nature. But yeah, nature's complicated. I have to look at it as, what do I care about and why do I feel this way? So for one, it would be something like, if lions were taken out, if we go and kill all lions, would that affect the ecosystem? Now, I don't know. I'm guessing a lot of things could negatively affect the ecosystem, but hypothetically, let's say killing lions would not affect the ecosystem whatsoever. Then I would need to hear a convincing reason to not kill lions for what you're describing. If I could
Mm.
cause suffering to not happen to the herbivore animals out there that lions would eat by
Yeah.
by taking out the lions, that makes logical sense to me. So yeah.
But then now we're in a position where you, as a vegan, are saying that there might be some scenarios where it's vegan to kill animals, lions in this case.
Yeah. Well, I think it's vegan to kill animals in a lot of cases. I think I think when people talk about the idea of what would happen if everybody went vegan today, and then the vegan has a hard time answering that question, saying they'll be
I
like,
don't.
"Oh, well, okay." Well, oftentimes people go, "Oh, well, it wouldn't happen right away, and it would be like this." I think the best answer to give in that case would be to execute every farm animal immediately. And I don't think that's the best answer. I think that's
Mm.
a more vegan answer than what we currently are doing.
Well, I mean, it's a silly hypothetical because it would never happen. But even if we
Yeah.
wanted to offer it and genuinely, let's just say, I don't know, there was some sort of mindset shift overnight. The majority of the animals in the farms only live to 6 weeks anyway, because the majority of the animals are chickens, and then a vast, sorry, even bigger than the amount of chickens we kill are fish, and they live in the ocean. So a lot of the animals we wouldn't even need to take from their home.
Mhm.
Um, Animals like chickens, well, yeah, they'll have to be killed because their life is basically torture, because they're bred into these bodies where they can't even walk past 6 weeks because their legs are so malnourished that they break under their own body weight.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that's a good element to point out as well. I just feel like I guess my point is, so my ideal utopia of ending animal agriculture and just animal owning in general would be that immediately it becomes illegal to own animals in any way. We either spay and neuter or don't spay and neuter. I'm on the fence on that, but we have a government funded sanctuary in all the different countries where all the farm animals and the pets go to the sanctuary. They they live or they don't live. Maybe the cats are going to kill the chickens. I don't know, but they are just put on the sanctuary. But since people will combat that with, oh well, we can't afford a sanctuary to do this, that, or the other, then I would
Mm.
just have the quick answer be, it is more vegan to kill every cow right now and end animal farming of cows than it is to do what we're currently doing, whether people eat those dead cows or not.
Well, I mean, couldn't you at least put them in some sort of sanctuary or something like that? The cows that
Well,
exist.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that's best, but I still think that if we didn't have that option, if the options were kill them or do something else, then
Mm.
like something else that includes what we're currently doing, then it's the killing them is still a vegan act compared to what we would be doing. Like I think if you take one cow, if I had one cow here and I could either kill it or I can put my arm in it, get it pregnant, have it give birth, pull its calf away, and then hook a machine up to
Yeah,
it and pump
sure.
out its milk. I honestly think it's probably
Yeah.
better to kill it and not breed anymore.
Uh, I think that, well, like you, yeah, you might be right in saying that, but that's a false dichotomy, because you're giving me two options there when there's a third one that we're just choosing not to take for some reason, which is
Mm-hmm.
uh, cow sanctuary or something like this.
Oh yeah, I'm not claiming that it is what should be done. I'm claiming that out of the two options, I think it's best. But I'm not, that's not an argument I have for making
Saying out.
that happen. It would be if the government said we either leave it how it is or we kill them all, and then I'd say yes, the vegan choice out of those two is kill them all.
Yeah. See, this is the thing, right? So, I guess, like, because your utilitarian-ish mindset, or what, I'm not exactly sure how you would frame it, but uh, um, this is the problem. You come up with all these issues, whereas all I have to say is it's wrong to violate the rights of other humans,
Mhm.
and it's wrong to violate the rights of other animals. I don't need to work out the suffering, or use any magical calculators. I just need to say it's wrong to harm animals when I don't need to do it. And I could give you an example. What about if there was like an alien world that we discovered very close to us,
Mhm.
and on that alien world there was a whole ecosystem where it's similar to ours. There's predators and prey, and they're constantly suffering because the predators and prey there. And we could
Mhm.
easily just send a nuke to that planet and destroy all of that life and end all of their suffering. Would that be the best thing to do? Would that be the vegan thing to do, to end the planet?
Well, first I'll point out that I'm only utilitarian in the sense of animals. So yes, I am nowhere near utilitarian for humans, and I am fully utilitarian for how humans treat animals.
Mm.
Now, to answer that question, I think it would be similar to what we were talking about with here, and would we take out lions? So if I was convinced that we should take out lions, I wouldn't be convinced that we should take out zebras. So as far as taking out that planet, I wouldn't take out the planet to make suffering stop. I wouldn't kill something that wants to live to make suffering stop. Necessarily, there might be a certain amount of suffering, um, but but um, but no, I just think that if I think if something can suffer, it should not be made to suffer. and
Okay.
so we should prevent that from happening.
Yeah, but on this planet, I don't know, let's call it planet wildlife.
Okay.
On planet wildlife, where there is suffering happening all the time, there's predators, there's prey, and the only option we have is sending a rocket with a nuke there. We can either allow the suffering to continue, the non-human animal suffering to continue,
Mhm.
nothing to do with humans, clearly, or we can end it. We've got the nuclear technology to end all of the suffering instantly. Now, for me, it's easy. I'm just going to say no because it's not for me to violate their rights
Mhm.
to because I've decided to take it from them. But for you, you have to do this calculation where you have to say, well, how much is the suffering? Is it worth it? This kind of stuff. But for me, that's easy. I just say no. We don't nuke
Uh,
the planet.
Well, no, I think I'm actually more aligned with you. I don't have to do the calculation, and I don't like there almost anything I could think of that humans should do would be not involving animals. So when I answered the question about the killing zebras thing, that was a direct question asked, similar to this planet thing, where if we ever got to a perfect world, that could be worth looking at. Similar to I heard a Lifting Vegan Logic talk about when super meat's created, would it be worth making a super meat not real sentient version of zebras to have out in the wild for lions to eat? And it's an interesting idea. It's worth pondering. I don't know how it would affect the ecosystem, but in general, my thought is leave them alone. Like, we separate ourselves from animals, and at best we go out and make documentaries and film them so we can see it.
Mm.
But no, I don't want to weigh out the suffering there. The suffering I want to weigh out is the suffering that we humans are causing, and what can we do to make us humans cause less, especially in one's own society.
Mm.
So it's complicated. If another society is doing something wrong, like Hitler did,
Yeah,
then our society can go and stop them. But aside from that, my personal focus happens to be on like my own like country. Like, I would hope laws would change for the better for
yeah.
how I want. So start small and move up.
Okay, but what about like I don't know if you've heard of the Sentinelese Island.
Mm-mm.
I don't know.
No.
So basically, they're a small island. I think they're just off the coast of Italy. I could be wrong, but they're a small island, and basically, no one's allowed to go there because they're the last surviving like island tribe. And what if it turned out that they were technically not human? They were like a I don't know, a few chromosomes or a few DNA strands away from being human, but yet they were causing huge suffering to each other. Would we have an obligation to stop them doing that? Should we nuke the island and stop the suffering, or should we just let them carry on?
Do are we able to reason with them, and are do they have any superpowers of any kind?
No, no, no. So they're for all intents and purposes they are human, but then biologically and technically they're not.
Okay.
Their DNA, their chromosomes are different.
Like a Neanderthal versus a Homo habilis versus Homo
Yeah,
sapien. Okay.
yeah.
Um, I would say if we are capable of reasoning with them, then I think it would be reasonable to tell
Hmm.
them, um, you shouldn't be doing this, and we don't want to allow you to do this. So if you continue these wrong actions, we are going to stop you. And that'll be complicated because we have to figure out which actions we're calling wrong. But if you look at it like Mayans and Aztecs sacrificing, I think the Mayans sacrificed close to 12,000 of humans a year for like sacrifice to sun gods and stuff like that. And so I think it would be fair. Like, I don't think we should say because their culture says it's fine, it's fine. We can go in and tell them, you need to stop doing this. If it was something we couldn't reason with, and they were doing this thing not to survive, and they were just doing these acts that we could see as causing suffering, but not to eat like lions do, then I would say it would be reasonable to take out any of the ones doing that we can't reason with.
So kill them.
The ones doing the acts, yeah, a human-like thing that is throwing other human-like things like down a temple stairs as a
Yeah.
sacrifice to their gods or whatever. I would say, I think so. What do you think?
Well, I mean, like, how far do we go with this? Because what about if they're a little bit further away from being human, and then a little bit further until you get to the point where, they're a lion and they're a lion eating their cub,
Yeah.
because that's what
Okay.
lions do. So,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, so nature's complicated. I think that it's interesting that lions will do various different things. Like if a lion, I don't know the exact reasonings for the lions eating the cubs, but we would have to. I think we would have to reason with it. We'd have to look at, okay, they killed these zebras to eat. They killed this cub because it was deformed. I think that's a thing that happens because they'll know it won't survive. But if we see all these animals doing these natural things that seem reasonable, and then we see one lion that is not eating animals and it's just running around killing animals for fun, I think it'd be safe to say, let's go ahead and just kill that lion, because we know what suffering is. We know that animals suffer, and we see that this lion's doing it for no reason. And again, I don't know where that line is and what we call reason or not, but that seems
Mm.
reasonable to me.
I think that what you're describing here, though, is like something that goes past what veganism is. Like veganism isn't about like this. Look, let's have a look at nature and see if we can adjust it. But veganism is more about what we should be doing as mankind, not to harm others. Like we just shouldn't be harming them. Whether we should prevent suffering is almost a virtuous thing. If I see a child on the street begging for food, um, it's not. Uh, it's not, I don't have to give that child food, but it's a virtuous thing to do it, in the same way that it might be go out into nature and try and make it better for them. But I don't think it's anything to do with veganism or something that we have to do.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let me ask you a question that's similar to the fire one with the old lady, or not the old lady, but with a person and a dog. And
Mm.
but let's change it up to, what if you and a friend are going to go out to shoot a documentary, and you go to an area where lions are, and you think you planned everything out perfectly, but a lion's coming at your friend, is going to kill your friend. Would you kill the lion to stop it from killing your friend?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that's kind of how so I'm taking these wild ideas
Mm.
of like the tribe, and I love these things. I love getting philosophical with the ideas of what would we do in situations. But in general, I have no interest in going to make other non-human things act to my will. I'm just saying what I would do if somehow we got to the point where that was worth conversation. But
Mhm.
but I view it something like the lion thing, where a lion might kill a zebra, and I can give you a hypothetical of what I could think to do if I want to stop that zebra from suffering. But more realistically, the only thing I would ever act upon would be something comparable to that, but where you replace the zebra with a human. And I would save that human, but I'd also feel bad that I put that lion in that situation where I had to kill it by entering its territory.
Mm.
And I would think documentary filmmakers should do a good job of not putting themselves in that place where they even need to kill it.
Yeah, I mean that is true, but equally, like there have been incidences of people walking through the forest, and a snow leopard or a bear comes at them, and they've got to kill that animal in order to survive. And I think, like, I suppose you could make an argument of we shouldn't be walking through their environment. That would be a fair enough argument to make. Um, but again, it's one of them. How far do you go with it? Because technically, this whole planet is animals' environment. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that those circumstances, when you have to kill to survive, you're justified in doing so, or killing to preserve human life, you'd be justified in doing so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Which is why maybe for the next portion of the conversation, we should talk about the difference between levels of suffering with the animals that we humans are affecting for the production of meat and whatnot. So let's say we have 1 trillion animals. Let's just say in the UK and in the US, that let's say there's 1 trillion animals in 1 year. So 2023, there's going to be 1 trillion that are going to die. Like, it makes sense to me to have a focus on how we talk to people about veganism, how we try to get people to either reduce stuff or to make legal changes to how factory farm stuff goes. If I could do something that isn't necessarily making each individual go vegan, but it is cutting it down from 1 trillion animal deaths to 500 billion animal deaths, I think that there's a benefit to that, even though that's just a calculation of numbers of who suffers. What is your counter to that? Um, yeah.
I don't have a. I mean, less rights violations are better than more rights violations, right?
Hmm.
Um, like 100 murders is not as bad as 1 million murders, but 100 murders is still bad.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. And so and I thought maybe you didn't feel that way. So I guess when I do like a video countering Joey Carbstrong, or I do a video defending someone like Cosmic Skeptic, I guess my point is I would rather um convince I don't know 100,000 people to be like Cosmic Skeptic, where you're like 95, 99% vegan, but for whatever reason, even though we can call it not a good reason, his reasonings, let's say they're not even good, um he's still causing so much less suffering than other people. And if we can get other people that are causing a lot of suffering to cut down on it, it just seems like a win-win to me.
I hear what you're saying, but to get people to that point, you have no control over that. And I think
Mhm.
if you tell somebody to go vegan and they end up going vegetarian, well, they might not have gone vegetarian had you told them to go vegetarian. They might have just said, "Well, I'll just reduce what I eat." So I think
Mhm.
sometimes if you give them the strong, you give them the truth, the honest truth, and give them the whole message, and with that information, they can do what they want.
Mhm.
Most people we speak to are adults, and they're able to make their own mind up. I think all you can really do is present them with the facts and the information, and what they do with that is completely up to them.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I don't think we should hold back on facts. My biggest issue with Joey is just when somebody, and it's different because he's debating, where I would mostly just have conversations with people. So I do need to cut him some slack. And I don't know what it's like to be on the spot with a debate. But
Mm.
it seems like he antagonates them. Like, as soon, I don't know if you watched that video I did of why people hate vegans, but when Joey was talking to this lady, and sure, she was trying to say why you shouldn't be vegan, but toward the end, she was pointing out that the reason people don't like vegans is because they're so negative. Not the facts about how pigs have their teeth cut out and tails cut off, not the gruesome truthful facts, but just the negative side of, if you don't do this, you're a horrible person, and yada yada yada. And Joey said to her, like, okay, well, what can I do to make you go vegan now? And she's like, I'm not going vegan now. And he's like, see, you said it. So you're not going vegan. So what does any of it matter? And I feel like anytime you're just antagonizing and making people walk away from a conversation saying, I hate all vegans, when you could
Mm.
tell them the facts, tell them all the truth, tell them what happened, show them videos, don't don't hold back at all. But then also when they say, yeah, I'll think about it, I might reduce, and go, awesome. Thanks for thinking about it. And if you ever have any questions, contact me. Here's a card for vegan 22. But just leave them not thinking, ugh, I hate vegans.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. But I think there's 2 points there which are quite important. And the first one is that, like Joey Carbstrong, when he talks to people, he is actually an entertainer as such on YouTube. Like YouTube's an entertainment platform, and people watch him to see
Yeah.
him engage with different people. I think that's why sometimes he makes it entertaining by his approach. And it's more about the people watching the videos than it is about that person that he's engaging with.
Mm.
And also, like I could, the way I do it. My main platform is on TikTok, and I do a lot of TikTok live. And what I find is that people, no matter how you do it, I can do it in many different ways. No matter what way you do it, people always attack the messenger, because they're not ready to hear the message. And the people who are ready to hear will hear the message. And there's actually a really good book by a guy called James O'Brien. It's called How Not to Be Wrong. And in the end of the book, he actually goes over how he was once wrong about vegans and vegetarians, and he admits it now. He admits that he's wrong. He's still a meat eater, but he
Mm-hmm.
admits it. And on self-reflection, he says that. He says, it's because I didn't want to admit that I was paying for this animal cruelty, and that's why I was attacking the vegans rather than the message that they had.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I think that's the main reason people get defensive about veganism is because nobody wants to be thought of as wrong. And I think
Mm.
our existence, the idea that even if we don't preach it whatsoever and we just don't eat meat and people know that we don't because we don't want to kill animals or harm them, people will say, well, I do that thing you don't want to do, and I'm not a bad guy, so I need to defend myself right now and get really upset about this. And so, yeah, that's right. It's a bummer that people view things that way. And that's why I think back, because I'm guessing you as well, but I used to eat all the animal products, and I went off and on at first, and then now it's been about 9 years. And
Mm.
I just know that the people out there, future vegans out there that are not vegan now, I feel like they are going, at least I know for myself, are going to react a lot better if vegans seem awesome and seem like a good inviting place and they're just like lovely to talk to, and they'll tell all these sad truths, and that will piss off the people that don't want to see the video footage, or the people that want to defend certain type of farmers. But those people are going to get mad no matter what. But the people that are just like, I'm going to eat meat because I like it, if you tell them the truth and then also be very friendly, be very earthling ed with them, then I feel like they're just going to walk away feeling better about it. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have any Joey Carbstrongs. I'm just throwing out my 2 cents for what I hope people think about when they talk to others about veganism.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just think that there are different ways of doing it, and none of them are proven to be right. So
Mhm.
I guess like until data or something on that, then it's all just guesswork. But there's no doubt that Gary Rofsky had one of the biggest impacts, and he was very aggressive and forthright with the way he put things, especially comparing it to the Nazi Holocaust. He had, he didn't mince his words when he spoke about that. So I think
Mhm.
that if he had such a big impact, then it can't always be a bad thing to speak directly.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been meaning to respond to that idea because I've heard some people talk about that. And I love Gary and I've watched a lot of his stuff. But I think that there's a difference when you're speaking to like a big group. Like he would do presentations to big classrooms, and everything he'd be saying wouldn't be to an individual. It'd be like, these are the horrible things humans do. We should stop
True.
doing it. Sometimes
Mm.
it would be on a news station. So it's not like he's there to impress that news person. He's there to answer questions and then have the world watching it, which is a good point you made about the world watching Joey and not just that individual. But I feel like I would wish that if Gary talked to individuals and made videos about it, or didn't make videos about it, I hope when Gary talks to individuals, he doesn't have that negative vibe that could come across when you're doing a presentation. Because I think when you're doing a presentation, you hear all these facts and you might go like, oh, dang it, that's talking about me. But since he's not looking at me and having a conversation with me, I can sit back, not feel judged, and think about the truths he's saying.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. In fact, now you mention it, Gary Rofsky actually does mention how when he did have the conversation with his family, he fell out with them and he no longer speaks to them. His family are all estranged now because I don't know if you know the story of he went to dinner one day and they all started ordering off the menu, and it was all non-vegan food. So he stood up and said to them, how many days have you had to eat animal products? And now you're sat with me and you can't have one vegan meal. And so he said he left the restaurant and that was the last he ever spoke to his family. So, mind you, that was like 6, 7 years ago. But, I think you're right. Like sometimes when it's a one-on-one, you do have to be a bit more, what's the word, like a bit more gentle or a bit more coercive with the way you invite the message into somebody's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that's pretty wild. Like I wouldn't judge anybody for doing what he did. It's a reasonable stance if you don't mind missing that family member, because it all comes down to what's normalized. It's sad that it does, but
Mm-hmm.
if you if right now it became legal to own slaves or something, and you only knew one person that owned a slave personally and it was a good friend of yours, you could easily say, I can't be friends with you while you have a slave. But if all your friends and family members have slaves or eat meat, then in this society where it's normalized, you kind of have to say, I don't want to abandon all these people and go
Mm.
just have only vegan friends. But if somebody does, like, I don't have any judgments against Gary for telling his family that he's stepping away from them. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that some people do this. I don't know. It's what people wear a fork around their wrist and they don't sit down with meat eaters. And I always think that
Mm.
that's probably not the best way to live your life because it almost excludes you from so many situations.
Mhm.
It's better off sitting down with them. And then when they ask you why you're eating the vegan meal, or they might even say, that looks nice. Quite often people say that to me. They say, actually, that looks like a better option than what I got.
Yeah,
Um, so, yeah, I think you're better off including people in your life for your own mental health, but also um, because it just means that you're a part of society and you're not so excluded.
for sure. Have you ever seen a vegan YouTube channel called Debug Your Brain?
Mm. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I like that guy a lot because he kind of teaches people how to talk to people when they do like public talking. And I like his way of doing it where you want to make sure that you're having a conversation with them, like be actually listening to them so they can tell you're listening, and just be very friendly with them, because it's hard to, because we're thinking, oh, these people kill and eat animals, we think it's despicable, so it's hard to be friendly with them. But if we have this ultimate goal of getting them to change their ways, then you kind of have to go with it. But then also not just as a goal, because it kind of sounds scummy to like fake your way through talking to a person. You also have to just recognize that they are what you used to be, and some people just take a lot to get them to do it. So
And ultimately, like we're salesmen, aren't we? We're selling an idea, and
mm,
we think the idea is good, and we think that they would like the idea too if they understood it. And so we're trying to sell them the idea. And but imagine if somebody was selling you an idea, I don't know, and they were doing it in a way where you were getting upset by it. You wouldn't necessarily
mhm,
want to buy into it. So yeah, I think it's
yeah,
good to get people on side. And I've definitely had more success speaking to people when their guard is down than when their guard is up.
yeah, yeah, definitely. um cool. Well, that seems like maybe a good point to stop it. Did you have any other thoughts? You probably have a lot
Um,
of thoughts, but for this
yeah.
talk.
No, not particularly. No, nothing that's screaming out. I
Okay.
think we covered that.
Yeah, yeah, we should do another talk sometime, and I'm sure we'll find a bunch of different topics to talk about, but that seems like a good spot for this one. So yeah, it was good talking to you.
Awesome, perfect. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Take care.